Well, I said,
She didn't even hear him.
I won't make it to the end of the term.
Joe sent an email that said we want recommendations and we could accept the report.
It's floating around.
That's unacceptable.
She's
They're
fed up.
ruining adjacent pieces of slabs of concrete for replacing them. That's unacceptable.
Price to do it.
So you need to get on the same page with us, and you need to be, you need to know what's going on, and you need to address this.
Generator.
Well, you said you didn't want it. However,
Choice words. Okay, I'll call this meeting to order. Tuesday, July 18th, Board of Selectmen meeting. Pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, approval of the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion since I see the Assistant Fire Marshal here. What I wanted to discuss was about the reports and all that. I don't think we need an executive session with him. I think he can come under new business and we can have him discuss the reports at that time.
It's up to him. Where do you want it? You want
That's
it?
fine.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so we'll put it
Under 11I,
11I.
and we'll remove the executive session.
Well, unless you got something else.
You got some other employment
you
too.
can't move an executive session.
Okay,
Well, we just remove him from the motion
Yeah.
when we make it, that's no problem.
Okay.
I missed that conversation.
Approval of minutes. Special meeting, July 6th.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting, Selectmen's meeting of July 6th, 2017, with 2 corrections after a second.
Second.
Go ahead. What's your correction?
Okay, one of the, on page 4, Sarah Muska, Maple Street. Maple Street is in Warehouse Point, it's Maple Avenue. And page 9 is, Kate must have been garbled because right about in the middle of the page, it said under Deputy First Selectman cited there 3 people hooked to the pump station for sewers, and they're on wells. And they do not have generators, is what I said.
Okay.
And down below, and then cited
I think we're
concern.
in the regular minutes, aren't we? Talking about regular minutes?
Oh, that was just- did I screwed up? I'm sorry, wrong one, sorry. Okay, no, nothing then. Duh.
All right. Okay, so all those in favor of accepting the July 6th special meeting minutes?
All right,
Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, yeah.
now we'll try it again.
All right.
Okay,
Regular.
make a motion to accept the the minutes of the Selectmen's meeting on July 6, 2017, with 2 corrections when we get there.
So what am I again, since I was looking for the pages on the discussion? Sarah, is where, please?
I don't have a second yet. We can
Second.
discuss it. Okay. Again, page 4, it's Maple Avenue. Page 9, and it was confusing, under my citing, which is 1, 2, 3rd paragraph down. I stated that the 3 people were hooked to the pump station for sewers, and were on wells with no generators. Mr. Anderson indicated 1 Enfield Show Stables would be installing their own pump station. I'm sure that was generator. I don't think they would put their own pump station in. Other than that, it's fine.
I have one on page 12, under Scott Morgan. The concert to benefit the Trolley Museum is this Thursday, the 19th. It says the 6th.
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Oh, but I knew that it wasn't July 5th.
Yes.
So that's wrong, okay.
Any further corrections? All those in favor?
Right.
All right.
All right.
Okay. And finally, the special meeting minutes from July 12th.
Make a motion to accept the special meeting minutes for July 12th, 2017.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I was not able to attend the meeting that day. We had lost power on Amelia Road twice that week, on Sunday for 11 o'clock till 6 o'clock, and then on Wednesday night, we lost power again and hit the transformer. With my husband's health issues, I had to get him someplace where he could relax. So I couldn't be in two places at once.
Okay, certainly excused. Any corrections? Okay, all those in favor of approval?
All right.
Aye.
Oh, I wasn't here, I'm staying. Just good.
Okay, communications. I do have two communications. One, I got a call from Mike Smith today, and I guess I should have gotten an email, I guess from the governor. Maybe Jason, you might have gotten it.
It went into my junk.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
That's what went.
So, there's going to be a ceremony of signing of Bill SB 957, which authorized the building of the casino at 11 o'clock on Thursday. So, and all the selectmen are invited to be there. So, if you can make it, that'd be good.
I'll be at a funeral.
They do want folks to RSVP ahead of time.
Okay.
Well,
And the other communication I have is an email I received from CROG, and in particular it was from Tim Malone, principal planner, and it was about the Route 5 traffic study, and that's starting up again. So we're going, at first we were going with Fuss and O'Neill, but because there was a conflict with the casino, they're going with Trans Systems, and there's a little reshuffling of who was doing what, but it looks like it's going to start up again. Any further communication? Okay, public participation. Paul.
Okay, tomorrow, Veterans Concert at the Trolley Museum, 6:30 to 8:30. Don't eat in advance. It's a fundraiser. Food will be served. Come on down, enjoy the music. Sit near me, if you can stand it.
Is there a rain date?
No, it's not going to rain.
It's gonna happen.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to invite the Board of Selectmen and the community at large. We are the Planning and Zoning Commission in concert with the DOT, and WSP is having our final Warehouse Point workshop for the Transit-Oriented Development Action Plan. We had one a couple weeks ago, and a lot of the board members and some other commission members attended as stakeholders, and this workshop will be an interactive open house. Informational workshop. They'll talk about the issues and opportunities and challenges in Warehouse Point. They're going to focus on 3 key parcels down there, and they will also be discussing complete streets and waterfront efforts. But
Do we have a date at all for that?
Yep, July 27th in this room from 6 to 8.
Okay. Dick.
Dick Sherman, 12 Allen Drive, Rod Brooks, American Heritage River Commission. I don't know if anything has been worked on insofar as the pile of trash. It's been getting bigger. There's 3 extra mattresses if anybody's looking for one that has been added to the pile.
This is on 140?
Right, down at the bottom.
That's a shame.
I'm gonna buy you a truck and wrap it around.
State road.
Lane, did you have something?
Blaine Simpkins, Deputy Fire Marshal, Town of East Windsor. Just come here, there was an executive session called the reports for Fire Marshal. From my understanding, there's a little miscommunications with the report, so I plan to CC Board of Selectmen email-wise. If we can't do that, we'll get a letter to whomever else requires it. In the report states...
Okay, well, we're going to discuss this you're going to come up to the board and just talk about it. Maybe we can go through
A new
it.
business.
Okay.
So you're going to be special, so you don't have to do it.
We got your number.
Okay,
So all set?
yeah, thanks. But you got to wait till the end of the meeting, so enjoy yourself.
Pretty close.
Oh, we could change it. Okay, any additional public participation? Okay, we'll move on. Oh, no. Okay. Board and commission resignations and appointments.
I'll make a motion to accept with regrets the resignation of Lorraine Devaney from the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's going to be a loss without her. Been here for a lot of years, a lot of knowledge there. I'd like to reject it, but that wouldn't be fair.
Is there a second?
I'll second that and just add that Lori has been a valuable member of that commission for as long as I've been going. And I think has she been on 10 years?
Thereabouts, I'm not exactly.
Basically,
That board has a very strong record of long tenures, and she has been a valuable contributor for a long time, and as a town employee before that. So wish her the best in her next chapter.
yeah, she's been on it basically since she retired.
Right.
Whatever
Which is
date
why
that-
she's getting off, because she wants to play in her retirement.
Now she's really going to retire? I doubt it. You don't know.
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do you want to change the order and invite Blaine up here?
We'll take 11I out of order and bring it in your,
I'm good.
just
10,
take it out of order.
to bring it before,
Yeah.
in the next item of business.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, come on up. Bring a chair.
Take a good chair.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got to move it back when you leave, because people can't see over the chair.
Okay, in the package I put out the May report and the June report. And so, you wanted to go over the reports, I guess, Dale, a little bit?
Now, the reporting structure for the two sides of town is very, very different. So what I'd like you to do is explain to me, you visited all of these places.
Yep.
Okay. Mill Pond outside fire called and extinguished same, so that takes care of that. Any follow-ups on any of these issues here?
Depending what the issue is, sometimes it's done right there, or Mill Pines, for instance, in the last one here, Building A and B, annual inspection.
Annual inspection.
What we'll do is we'll run through with either maintenance or someone in the office management, and if we find any code violations for those, we'll give them like some sort of grace period. If it's something very simple, say, hey, we'll be back next Monday or Tuesday, we'd like to see it fixed. Or if it's something that needs to be addressed right then and there, it's going to be addressed right then and there. Or have a really good action plan for whatever it needs to be. 55 Skinner, we had a smoke from an outside fire set up residential alarm. That's pretty cut and dry. We had a electrical fire. We we had a leak in a house from they had a washing machine in the second floor of the house, and something happened with the drain line, and that leaked into the walls, got down into the ceiling, and got into an electrical fixture on the first floor, which happened to be the dining room. We got a call for sparking and arcing, pretty much, of the electrical fixture. With that, went there, the fire department responded, found the problem, isolated the incident, or isolated the power to the fixture. Fire marshal's office and the building official's office both responded to the scene, dealt with the homeowner to see what needed to be fixed, and also did follow-up later on. I think it was like 2 or 3 days later, and they basically had to dry everything out, put a little new wiring in there, and fix the plumbing upstairs. And pretty much with that, something like that, we just, whenever, because it really wasn't a light safety thing, so to speak, we just says, yeah, when you get it fixed, just give us a jingle, and we'll come back. That's what we did. Then, what else we got?
Talk about,
All right, so fire marshal continuing education. By state law, to hold a fire marshal certification, you have to maintain credit hours of 90 hours for a 3-year cycle. So in that 3 years, you're supposed to hit, they give you like different things you do. Want you to do a little bit of building, a little bit of fire, and a little bit of everything. So a lot of these classes are during the day. What they'll do is they'll do a 3-hour stint. You go somewhere, have a class for 3 hours. And this year I took about a week off of work and went to June fire school. And for those, it's an 8-hour class. You got to take. We did one on building construction, vehicle fire, flashovers. Basically when you have a whole room involvement, what signs you're going to look for, different things. But the state requires. They'd like to see 30 a year, but as long as you're making that 3-year cycle, 90 credits. So, and the state has cut back quite a bit on, you could used to be able to do class, you could knock 90 out in almost a year, but about 6 years ago, with the budget crisis the state had, they laid off a lot of people, instructor-wise, and guys that had retired, they never backfilled it. So to make 90 credits now is pretty close to impossible sometimes. So.
what I'd like you to do, if you wouldn't mind, is add dates.
Okay, that's fine.
Like when you went to continuing education, you went to the fire academy, you received 2 credits, 15 credits,
Okay.
however long you were there.
Along with the, we could add this one, along with like all the stuff the fire department goes with us,
Yep.
to us with like 66 gram, 340 ride for vehicle fires or light fixture, like the light fixture one. We have what's called an IFRS report that's also required by the state. The fire department fills out pretty much what they got, as in what they were called for, their actions taken. And then the fire marshal's office, along with the same report, it's a pretty lengthy report, goes in and pretty much assumes from where the fire department left off to the resolution of the problem. So that's also in our realm of things. It's just not written in there. But that gives you everything. It breaks down every single thing we did in there.
Plan review, so somebody wants to do something on Prospect Hill Road.
Usually something like that, because Prospect Hill, that's Whereas Point's jurisdiction. We do have town-wide jurisdiction, but that's Whereas Point's area. They cover that. So what we'll do is, on the view permit, it has to come through us too. So what we'll do is just, not applicable by our office or
And send it over.
send it to Rich, yeah.
Okay.
So do you, so you have townwide authority,
Jurisdiction, yeah.
but do you exercise that?
Not unless need be.
What's an example of need be?
Basically, in my term of being fire marshal, the only time we've really been called is if it's been an ongoing problem where if they couldn't get a hold of somebody or if there's some sort of special need where the first selectman has called us to say, hey, just go there for X, Y, Z. A lot of times we haven't. My father, he's done more like liquor permits and stuff on the other side of town just because he had a relationship with the business owner from 100 years ago. Like Jonathan Pasco's, he did Pasco's with Brian, because he's been Brian for years, and before Warehouse Point had that section of town, he was doing it. So that's just kind of how that would, same thing with Golden Irene, he's been doing Golden Irene for up to years too. So that's pretty much it, but
When the Warehouse Point Fire Marshal does an inspection or any similar type work,
yep,
they collect a fee, right?
they do, yes.
Do we?
Not to my knowledge. That'd be tax. In my opinion, that would be what you pay tax.
Good point. Good point.
So,
How about town facilities like the high school or something like that, police
we
department?
used to do the police department, everything on that side of town building wise, and this side obviously. That was changed the last administration. I don't remember, I can't tell you the dates off the top of my head, but that was changed. Christine took over the town, everything on that side of town, we took over our side of town. And that's pretty much how it lied.
Okay.
But up to that point in time, yes, we did do the annex, the police department, high school.
Okay, 'cause these haven't been installed yet, these are still all work in progress.
Park
They
Hill,
haven't
yeah,
been done
we
yet.
have, we're doing 2 different alarm, they have a old alarm system that they've had, when they've been doing work inside, they've been finding problems with the alarm system, it is vintage. So what they're doing is going on, putting a new fire alarm system in and the medical system, medical alarms. So we're doing that, my father was just in a meeting with them last week sometime. And then we're doing Knox boxes and all the Mill Pond buildings right now, we're going along with that.
Okay.
How many inspections would you say you do a year? It doesn't have to be exact, just
Well,
ballpark.
the problem is, you got 2 different types. You have business, and you have, we have to do apartment building to 3 family. I would have to say upwards of non-fire related,
Yeah.
at least 250 a year, ballpark. Because it's not just annual inspections, it's anything, building change, occupancy changes, or anything that you're doing in the building, something like that. Anytime pretty much a building permit's pulled, on a, anytime Rand's office goes, if it's not a 1 and 2 family dwelling, fire marshal's involved. Because that's the only thing we really don't have a lot of, our scope doesn't do 1 and 2 families unless there's a fire. So we don't do any code stuff, and once it's built, that's it. You'll see us too much once it's built, because I'm never going to inspect your house, you know, something like that. We don't really do single family house, but anything 3 family and above, we're on them. And for those, we check in smoke detection system, egress, something like that.
When you find a violation, you obviously send a report. Is there any notation on any of these investigations or inspections that you've done that you had to issue a violation?
Not on those, no. On our NIFRS report, if it comes to it, they're on those, but thankfully, everybody we deal with, we don't have to do, we find small violations, but nothing crazy. But we do note those in our report when we do find something like, say for instance, we go to Mill Pond and pole boxes broken or fire detection head is hanging, we know, okay, building A, 2nd level, pole station is.
Yeah, but that, not necessarily, they weren't in violation, that was vandalism.
Yes,
When you make them aware.
Yeah. Usually for buildings like that, we walk through with maintenance. There's very seldom does the fire marshal go in alone to either apartment or any building. So, yeah.
When you do an apartment, when you do an apartment inspection, you're doing the common areas,
Common areas,
not
correct.
the individual
No.
units, unless there's a vacancy in those units.
Yes, correct. We can, if there's like a blight issue or you have multiple calls or something going on in that apartment, we can seek a warrant, administrative warrant, it's called, to gain access to that dwelling, but usually we don't have to go that far. Usually maintenance kind of, we'll knock on the door, but hey, you know, we gotta try and come in, ask for permission, and we do gain permission that way. A lot of times it works out that way. We don't have to go crazy with it.
So you spent a lot of time in Mill
I don't have any more questions. Thank you for taking the time.
Hey, not a problem.
And, yeah, as long as we continue to get these reports, I would just ask if you put the date on them and how many credits, hours, and, you know, what you've got left for the 90.
Well, I just made my 90 in August, so
Yay.
I'll be starting all over again.
You break up, do you do 30 a year?
Usually.
Yeah.
Sometimes give or take. But
There's just two of you, just you and your dad?
yep.
Yeah, if you could send an email to all of us.
Yeah, I was gonna do an email blast on that.
Yeah.
I gotta try and
That would
get
work.
everybody's contact information.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, because they're all on the web.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Appreciate you taking
Hey,
it.
Thank you for taking the time.
Not a problem. Have a great night, everybody.
You too.
You're welcome to stick around.
Oh, that's all right.
Wait, leave the chair. Leave the chair.
Oh, you're next?
He's got to get up early and go to work.
I gotta go in about 2 hours.
Oh, you're working nights?
Yep.
Yeah.
16-hour clips.
Thanks, Blaine.
Yeah, have a good night, everybody.
Be careful.
Okay, we'll go back in order.
Good thing we took him early.
First one, 250th anniversary.
Your paper.
Now we're getting silly.
We don't have much. We have a meeting this Thursday, 7 o'clock at the Osborne House, and on August 12th, which is a Saturday, is the Historical Society's Ice Cream Social, where we will be having a table selling all of our merchandise, and the Images of America East Windsor book will be out by then, so the books that are bought at that event at the Ice Cream Social will go towards the Historical Society, but future events, we will sell them as $250 and we will get the proceeds from those. So those will be out, and they'll be out on the 7th, I think. So starting then, they'll be at events coming up, and then they'll be at the 4-H fair, which is the weekend after that, so the 19th, I think it is. We'll be there just on Saturday, and then we'll be at the Town Fair, which is September 14th through 19th, if I can get those dates right. So, yeah.
When are those books coming out, you said?
I believe the 7th is their release date, so
Oh, okay.
whenever Seal gets them after that is when they'll be distributed to everybody. So,
You're doing a book signing, right?
book signing
Signing
at
at the,
the,
September 20th or something?
something like that.
in
Yeah.
South Windsor.
At the South Windsor, well, the bookstore that used to be in East
Yeah.
Windsor is now in South Windsor, so,
Cindy,
yeah.
They'll be signing at the Ice Cream Social as well.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It will be.
And that's important because that's here. So everybody should go to that event. Everybody.
And it's ice
If you
cream.
order the weather better than last year.
It was just hot last year.
Whoa!
Oh, was
It
there?
was gross
Beyond
last
hot.
year.
Yeah,
Let's go.
it's good for
But
ice.
it's ice cream,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
works.
There you go.
You had to eat it quickly, that's all.
Oh, yeah.
So we're still always looking for help and looking for donations. We have about 5 months until the masquerade ball, so we need some help in planning that.
Thursday night.
Thursday night at 7 o'clock. But yeah, other than that, that's all I have.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
Now, Road Mill site. I could say some things, but I think I'll defer to Jason. You've contacted Maurice and actually scheduled a date when he could come in here.
Oh, kind of. I had a good conversation with him, lasted 45 minutes or so. And I took some notes that I then sent to him for confirmation that I understood some of his terminology correctly. So if you'll beg my indulgence, I'll just read those. This was sent on, when was it sent? 7/14, Friday. Good morning, Maurice. Thank you again for taking the time to speak with me. As discussed below is a recap of my notes from our conversation as well as what the town could do to move the project forward. Please feel free to correct any misunderstanding I may represent. I noted that Bob gets bi-monthly reports outlining the progress made by AECom or UTAS in terms of remediation applications, licensing, etc. Once the remediation plan, which has been modified, is approved by DEEP, and they have a target approval date of sometime in September of this year, UTAS will still need to go through a rather extensive permitting process, which could include up to 15 different permits that they'll need to secure from the state and the feds, from things like the Army Corps of Engineers, certain tribal sign-offs because of the federal implications, historic preservation requirements and sign-offs, and others. The site remains a pre-Superfund site, and what that means is that it needs to attain all of the sign-offs that a Superfund site would require, even though it's not technically a Superfund site because we were put on the pre-Superfund designation. We now need to go through all the same federal sign-offs, which is what brings in all that federal, all the federal permitting and approvals that we need to get. UTC's initial remediation plan as submitted to DEEP was, as we qualified on our conversation, a little overly optimistic and has been rewritten. Once some of the outstanding questions pertaining to the revised remediation plan are resolved, the remediation plan review approval process can go forward. At this time, the town hasn't, at the time where we are now, where they haven't issued their approval yet, the town has an opportunity to weigh in with DEEP about what we'd like to see in terms of a building envelope and what's called a clean corridor on the property. That's not to say that we need to decide we want to keep that building, we want to take that building down, but at some point in time, we want to see this area developed, this area left alone, this area for utility right away, that kind of stuff. So we can give them general ideas about where we want to see deeply remediated and otherwise where capping would be sufficient. This is our only chance to do that, is before they issue final approval to the revised plan. Technically, theoretically, our only time to do that. Absent any feedback from the town, the decision will be made by UTC or a future owner, and then signed off on by DEEP. So if we're silent, then it's up to UTC what they're going to do in terms of a building envelope and a clean corridor. If they should sell the property before the approval is completed, it's up to the new owner what they would do, because the town has been silent. So we have an opportunity to say, we want this, we don't want this, we're not interested at all in what happens here, and so do whatever you want. But we need to be weighing in before they issue their approval sometime in September. The new remediation plan may be approved by DEEP as early as September, but any actual remediation activities are not likely to begin until next summer. And just given the laundry list of permits that are required, I think that even is optimistic. Mr. Hamill has agreed to come and speak at a Selectmen's meeting once the remediation plan is approved. This discussion would entail a brief history of the contamination, as well as the steps that led to the rewritten remediation plan, as well as what the newly approved plan will require as we move forward. I asked if that about sums it up, and he said that it does, with a minor correction that actual revisions to the plan based on DEEP comments have not yet been received. Actual revisions to the plan based on DEEP comments, so that UTAS hasn't even officially submitted the plan yet as of our conversation. When they do, the clock starts ticking. They're still anticipating a sign-off by sometime in September. Depending on the agenda of topics to be discussed, UTAS might also be useful to include, and we've suggested that here before, but when Mr. Hamill comes and has a conversation with us, he's reiterating that it might be helpful to have UTAS in the room. And then he did offer a contingency that he has a personal family commitment, so he'll use his best efforts to come to a meeting in October, but he has a family situation that may come up. Although he did give me every indication that he would give his best interests or best efforts to try and come and give us the dog and pony.
Okay, that's pretty comprehensive, I think.
It was a great conversation. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, and there's been subsequent emails that prompted, and I have a list of the permits that I think UTAS said they would have to go through, and so I won't read them, but there's town permits, and as you said, there's DEEP permits, and as you also said, the Army Corps of Engineers involved, so there's a lot that they have to do. And it was good that you talked to him, and Maurice asked for a list and then a time frame. So we're actually getting tasks and time frames. So we're moving forward there. So that's good. And keep this, I learned a term, clean corridor. And keeping that in mind, Lori, come on up, because we're going to talk about the Broadbrook Opera House.
Where's that on the agenda?
It isn't. We're going to talk about the Broadbrook Mill site and how it relates to the Opera House. But we're also going to bring up a little thing. We talked to somebody last week, and they want the town to be involved in a public-private partnership, and basically what they said, and we're going to get a lot more details. This is just a heads up. But Lori said at that point, it ties right into the Broadbrook Mill site. And what it is they want, apparently, if they can, and maybe the term, I'm searching for a term, but they have to come to the town to own the place because they want it to raise all this money, which is millions of dollars that they say they can do, to refurbish the whole thing. They're going to buy it and refurbish it. They have to have it continually be what it's intended to be. In other words, when they raise all this money, it's going to be to restore an old opera house, and it's always going to be an opera house for a period of time. And so they have to associate it with, I guess, a town or something like that that's not a private corporation, although there's a lot of details to come. But I'll let Lori talk for a little while.
All right, so I assume that the board knows that we have actually submitted a grant to the State of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development Office of Brownfield Remediation and Development Remedial Action and Redevelopment Municipal Grant Application. If you remember all that. So this was in conjunction with Attorney Yagala, who wanted to try to rehab the mill site itself, the actual mill. The grant overall proposes to renovate the powerhouse. He was suggesting maybe some sort of a doggy daycare, training kennel, something of that nature. The main building, but demolishing the wings of the main building. And the key for that was really to get the roof fixed, because the roof is leaking, the building is deteriorating. So if we do want to keep and renovate it, and I'm not sure that that's what the general consensus is or not, but if we do want to do that, the roof needs to get fixed. That's pretty critical. They would demolish the garages, buildings 1 and 2, removal of mow, fixed roof, and grant money to bring the building up to code, elevators, and similar things.
So before you go any further, what is this about? Is this about the mill or is this about the opera?
So I'm tying this together. There's a little story here.
Well,
so
the reason I ask is because if it's about the mill, then why did we submit a grant for a building we don't own or have an interest in?
So he would take custody of the site, and then Mr. Yagla.
So that's Keith's grant.
It's Keith's grant, but it has to be sponsored by the town. And ultimately, he would take custody of the site and then give us access easements for parking and maybe that amphitheater or something of that nature. That actually is a requirement of the grant, that we cannot, if we actually are awarded this grant, we may not own the property.
The grant says that we cannot own the property.
Correct.
Okay.
Excellent.
So that doesn't commit the town to any ownership stake or any liability stake or.
I do not believe so. I don't want to answer that without fully vetting, and we can do it again, but I don't believe so. It basically, the ownership becomes somebody else's, and then they give us the right to park and pass on the property. I was going to go with something. the grant itself basically says that the town must, that the town has to be the one that follows the grant from start to finish. So, you know, we're the ones that have to engage with all of the monies and everything, but
So we promised to do X in the grant. We as the town promised to do X for a property that we don't own that's going to be controlled by a private individual. And then what happens if the private individual doesn't follow through with the terms of the grant? Are we obligated to return any funding? Or we, you know, what happens then?
we can, I'd have to look into that more. I honestly do not know the answer to those questions. So,
That's
if it's
scary.
if it's awarded, we will certainly go through it with fine tooth and comb.
Any idea when it might be?
I haven't heard a thing about it.
We don't have a budget.
Well, same thing that's happening with our other possible purchase of development, right, to the big farm on Rice Street. That's
Oh,
not,
that's not budget dependent though.
that's not budget dependent, but it's still on hold.
Also,
So anyway, so.
How does that tie in the opera
Okay,
house?
so I'm getting there right now.
Okay.
So coincidentally, when we were working on this grant, what is the title of the people? I guess
Well,
they're kind of like the operators of the
Yeah,
opera house.
Sue Croquette was one name, I think Bill Barnes was
Yeah,
another.
Bill Barnes,
and
yeah.
And they represented the
Yeah.
Opera
So,
House.
so the Opera House is up for sale, and they would very much like to remain in the Opera House and continue it as an asset to the town, and it certainly is a historic asset and one that not only townspeople but the regional people come to habitually. So what they were saying was, if we could get enough money to buy the place, buy the building.
Because the first thing I said to them,
Yeah.
we don't have any money,
Yeah,
we can't
if
put up
they-
any money.
If this couple, the Opera House players, could get the money to purchase the whole Opera House structure and then give it to the town, and we would do the general maintenance and, you know, figure out.
No, wait a minute.
Hold on.
I'm not even gonna let her finish.
Well,
No.
I'm not saying I'm for this or against
No,
this,
no,
I'm
but let
saying
me-
this
let-
was proposed, and I think it's.
Lori, they sent me an email. We didn't want to get this far down. I just wanted to let you know this. In fact,
Well, that's what the public-private partnership is.
well, what they have said, but this is just, we're just in the preliminary discussion. We
Yeah,
talked for
absolutely.
half an hour.
Yeah.
But I'll get the figures here. I asked
Well, you're
for,
looking for the figures. I told them about what was happening at the Broadbrook Mill, and the first floor was supposed to be this fountain house, which is a safe place to socialize for, it's a social service workshop, I guess.
Okay.
But the second
never mind. I got the figures I was going to say, but finish.
Okay, so the second floor, there was really no plan for it. And so I was talking to the Opera House people, and they were like, that would be a great place for us to have like a workshop of our own, so we could do our, do the sewing and build the sets and all of that. And then I showed them the map, that sort of half-hour thing that I did of the map of the amphitheater and possible uses of the site. And they were like, oh my God, we could do the amphitheater, we could have an ice cream shop, and they just got so excited. And from a planning perspective, to preserve both of those things and tie them together and bring some people and vibrancy to the downtown Broadbrook, that would be great.
Yeah, I think they were really
And
interested
that's
in
really
parking.
where this
Yeah.
big story is going, is this, there is interest in the town to preserve both of these. So I've heard a lot of discussions saying that, in general, we don't want to take over the Broadbrook Mill, and I understand the reasoning behind that. However, it is historic. It does have a lot of utilities that are already there.
But it's going to be historic no matter who owns it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not getting any younger. So there's no sense in the town taking on what is an unknown liability.
I understand that. I'm just saying that I think that there may be interest beyond the town hall for this to be preserved. And you know, in the POCD, it talks about preserving, you know, our historic assets, and that's one of them. There's two of them. So, you know, I saw the tie-in there because they were like, okay, well, you do parking on that site, even that's going to help the Broadbrook Opera House, regardless of who owns it or whatever. So it's just you know, a possibility of somewhere down the line, maybe we could work something out with all of these people together and figure out how to preserve these things and these wonderful things that are part of our Broadbrook. That they make up what this village is.
I want to follow up. This is just the beginning. This is pie in the sky, but I asked for some more specifics, and this is what they said, that they have a total income of $121,000 a year, and they have show expenses of about $54,000. They said they would give us $41,000 a year for maintenance of the building. It's like rent. They give it to us $3,442 a month. Plus, every year they put $3,500 into escrow for future repairs. So, and this is just the beginning. And so we'll have to see. They also said that they feel that they can get literally millions of dollars to redo that whole building through a funding campaign. So that they would give us a completely refurbished building any way they want. And like one thing they were talking about is putting in an elevator. Another thing they were talking about is, I guess the players have to come up the front stairs to get to the stage. So they want to put a back entrance in the thing so that the players can come up in the back. So this is just in the initial stages. But when they heard that they could have parking across the street, they said, this is good. This is what we need, because they have a parking problem there. Exactly. So they do fit together. And I figured this was a good time to make everybody aware that we're talking about, at least talking to them. So we'll see what happens. Because there's a ways to go.
And all it is just conversation at this point, but and everybody's just putting ideas out there. So, but you know, I thought when I talked to Bob about it, and he said, yeah, let's bring it before the board of selectmen. So you know, so everybody has full knowledge that there are these discussions. So.
I certainly appreciate that.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Dick?
Before we get done on this, you know what? From what Jason's report says, if we don't get off our brains and get moving on this thing, we're going to get a cap job, and that's all. And I don't think that's what this town needs or deserves.
But based on the conversation I had with Mr. Hamill, we don't need to submit to them, you know, architecture and engineering for a plan of what's going to happen to that site. We need to say, you know, in this corner, someday there's going to be something, in that corner there's not going to be anything at all. That's the extent of it. We don't need to have any details. Well, we just need to kind of give them a vision of...
Okay, this is my thoughts. At least 50% of that site should be remediated to the point of allowing reuse for development. Buildings, whatever. The balance of the site should be for parking and recreation. Don't just cover up the thing and leave the problem in the center of our town. And I think we should take a resolution on that thing and send it to Mr. Hamill and give him some direction. The spots that are bad seem to get smaller and smaller. I don't know how much more it would cost to do it and do it right so we could have a viable center in Broadbrook. But to have a cap site that's almost a Superfund site is ridiculous. Whether the buildings are saved or whether we give the bricks to the Historical Society. Irregardless, if we let this plan go through any further, without comment, you're going to get a pile of dirt capped with some orange silk fence underneath it to mark it, and that's going to be the end of it. And I don't think that's what the people in this town want. In fact, I'll make that a motion.
Well, what is your motion?
The motion is, well, our resolution is that the Board of Selectmen of the Town of East Windsor, at their meeting, feels that at least 50% of the Broadbrook Mills site should be remediated to the point of allowing reuse for development, not capped. The balance of the site should be used for parking and recreation. Did you get that? Did I do it too fast, Peg?
A little, but that's.
And I do offer that. I think that should be a resolution if the board feels that way. Because if we wait much longer, it's going to be too late, Charlie.
So what you want to do is you want to direct town staff to submit comments to that effect.
Well, I think we as a Board of Selectmen have to take that stand to Mr. Hamel.
Well, that's not really how the, I mean, you can, sure, but that's not really how the regulatory process works. You know, when they're soliciting comments, they're actually looking for, three pages worth of something that says, we want to do, we agree with the underlying proposal of X, and we want to see Y happen, but we don't like Z, and, I think it's a little more technical than what you're. Well,
maybe the people that are trained in this thing, but I think we've got to give some guidance here, and I don't think we've probably waited too long already.
So, Lori, would you be able to draft comments for us to review at our next selectmen's meeting? Which should be plenty of time for us to.
I think the big thing is they want to know if there's going to be buildings in a certain section, and you were alluding to this.
Yes.
They won't cap it with 2 feet. They may cap it with, just a rubber bat or whatever it is, and 6 inches or 8 inches of soil. If it's going to be capped with parking, they're not going to need as much soil underneath. If it's going to be open, then they're going to be putting 2 feet of soil in it, and that's what they want to know. Where do you want those
yes, that's
types
exactly
of
right.
uses?
You want to plan for some of that, to reuse some of that.
Right.
And basically what I just said is about what your plan comes out to.
Well, right, and my plan was, like I said, it was
And I think we need to give it a green light to get going on this thing.
Okay, I think we can do that.
I agree.
And I think maybe we should send out some emails even in advance.
Well, I made a motion, so anybody want to second it?
I'd like more general than that. I wouldn't want 50% this, 50% that.
I said at least.
Well, it doesn't matter. I don't know if, I think that Lori can come up with a pretty good plan, and we can talk about the specifics then. But I think a motion to have planning and zoning and the town staff come up with a description of what we want to see there, then we can talk about it and change it.
I think you got your description right here. 50% of it should be able for building and development, and the balance should be for parking and recreation.
I think it actually.
That's simple.
I think it needs to be kind of both of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Do we want to see 50% of, pick the number. We want to see X% available for this purpose and X% available for that purpose.
Yeah.
And we want to see.
That's it.
I think you guys are both in the ballpark. I just think it's both of what you're saying.
The area along Mill Street, for a good part of it, there's no real contamination there anyway.
No, you're just looking at regrading there.
Regrading there, I think there's one little spot that's got to be remediated properly, and you've got roughly 50% of the site that can be developed easily.
How much is on the other side of the brook that isn't contaminated?
It doesn't matter, you're not going to get there.
There's
Yeah, but the property has land on the other side of the
like
brook.
that.
The contamination isn't shown to be on the other side?
No, there's no contamination shown over there.
No, there wouldn't be, because there's a brook that
Yeah,
separates
Brooke
the
took
two
it away.
properties.
But I think we really need to act and get some guidelines going. Maybe 50% isn't the number, but it seems to look like it could be easily done at the site without making the cost go out of sight. It would give us something, we could have a viable center of town, as opposed to letting the site go to waste.
Could I ask if you have a general consensus, if, for instance, we did not own the site, would you like to see the mill preserved, at least a portion of it?
What was the first part of that?
If we didn't own the site?
I have no preference at that point. I don't want to own it.
No, I don't either.
I don't want to own it until it's like, God made it clean.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay. I think that's the big question mark at this point, is what happens with the mill itself. I mean, if the mill comes down, we could do all the rest of the stuff pretty easily. If the mill doesn't come down, we can do the rest of the stuff, but we need to know what's gonna go at that mill site. It's either the mill or something else, or maybe we build there.
You could put a
Maybe
nice
that-
little
Maybe
road,
that's the option.
you could
We
put a
say,
road right down
the mill
from Main
either is
Street,
built,
come right around and put stores down there. You could put, you can't put residential, we know that.
Well, that, yeah, residential.
But you
we
could
never
go
know
around there and you could put buildings down there. You could make it a viable community. The road's already there.
So what I'll do in the proposal is, and it will show the option, the mill either remains or it's removed and perhaps other buildings are put in its place.
If we get it after 2 years, we won't have to worry about it. The mill will just fall.
Well, there you go.
But it doesn't matter. That could be part of that 50% goal too, you know? But I think we really need to address this.
And again, and I'm sorry to kind of ask this of you, because I know that it's a quick turnaround, but if that were ready for us to review at our first August meeting, which I think is the 1st, then, I mean, that's certainly plenty of time for us to approve that and get it submitted through the process. Thank you.
I can come up with something.
Oh, died for lack of a second, so.
I'm not positive if I can be here, but I can come up
Well,
with
there you
something.
go. Alexis.
Okay, all right, good. Any further discussion on the Broadbrook Mill site? Okay, let's see. South Road.
There's her.
Yeah, well, South Road, we made progress. All the insurance is available, so environmental services can now clean up Sarah Person's backyard, and they'll probably start next week, filling in the hole, and they need to get some possible permits to have a vacuum pipes underneath the foundation to do some remediation, but everything is in place to have it remediated. And so that's the quick, and I think, again, we're thinking about long-term solutions and haven't made much progress in that. One thing I did think about was, and where we should think about, is maybe having somebody make sure the containment tanks, that the plugs in them are functioning. Maybe not, I don't know. When it first happened, there was some thought that if we made sure that containment vessels were working correctly, that might make us liable for them. That was one, and that's why I hesitated, but other people have said what I thought was common sense. If it's going to cost us $10,000 for every time it happens, then maybe we should spend $100 on a vessel or something to fix the plugs and make sure they're working right. Something we can, I'd have to have the board of selectmen decide one way or the other. We don't have to do it tonight. That's something to consider.
The problem with that is they're not our vessels.
They're not.
And for us to go and do work on them, you may be really leaving yourself open for problems.
There you go.
If the fire marshal was to inspect them, that's a different deal. And they can actually red tag them if they're unsafe, which means you cannot use them. And that's your teeth you have in the law.
What do you mean you cannot use them?
If a fire marshal red tags a tank or anything like that, that's it.
So in other words,
You cannot reuse it until it's either compliant or removed, and that's it.
the tank would be okay. It would be the containment vessel that would.
Well, you can't use the tank without a containment vessel,
Makes a sense.
so,
Okay.
but they have that ability.
Bob, the problem out there was that tank let go, so it's only a matter of time probably. They're all outside, they're all subject to the elements.
None of them are
And if
covered.
one went, I
That's
mean,
why I
granted,
wanted
if the
to-
containment vessel's working properly, you don't have a problem, but I think somehow those residents need to know that they need to have their tanks, I thought a letter went out, but
Oh, it did, but I can see.
but they need to have their tanks inspected, they need to have someone who's certified, either their heating contractor, plumber, whatever, check the tank, make sure it's viable on their dime, and if it's not, they need to replace it, or repair it, or whatever.
All right, so I hear what you're saying.
Or we give them the property.
I like that better.
That's the better idea.
Yeah.
And I see somebody else likes the
Yeah, we
idea.
working on that?
We're working on that, but I'll, if you gave me a lawyer, I'd do it, but I know you gave me a piece of paper that one of Pullman and Conway lawyers wrote up, but that's not what I need. So that's a long-term project, but more immediate, you said you have to get the owners of the properties to have the containment vessels inspected, and if they're not working correctly, fixed. It's easily said, but rather difficult to do.
Well,
I don't think so.
I don't, well,
Dick says he hasn't thought, how are we going to do
well,
this?
no, I don't know, his idea wasn't that bad.
Have
I
an
mean, he
inspector.
had a good idea with the fire marshal going.
Yeah.
I don't know what right we have to do that on private. Well, I
No,
guess
it's
our
not
property.
private property.
No, it's not, it's our property, but it's there, yeah.
And it's
okay.
about multiple occupancy, so technically that's more than 3 families. The fire marshal can.
So that might be.
Or the building official.
Have the warehouse point fire marshal go through and check
Yeah.
the tanks if that's, yeah.
Aren't they single-family dwellings?
Yeah.
Yes. So doesn't that mean the fire marshal doesn't have authority there? They're not rental properties, so they don't have another.
There are single-family dwellings on one big piece of property.
Right.
So is that a multifamily or is that a single
But
family?
the issue is that the people who live there own the homes, they don't own the underlying ground.
No, they also own the containment tanks, so we have to pay for the spill when
Yes.
Right.
So, I mean,
Well, we only pay for the deduction.
whatever.
But you know what? You say
And we got lucky at
$10,000.
that.
You know, we get another 1 or 2 tank failures, you know what's gonna happen to our insurance? We're gonna be looking somewhere for it. We can't let this thing continue.
The problem is you can go through and you can make sure it's working correctly, and if they don't maintain, I mean, how often are you gonna do that? If they don't maintain it, or if they pull the plug or whatever, I mean, you
Once
can't go out there every month and check their
Once a
containment.
containment tank fills up with water, they're gonna pull the plug in.
Yeah.
If they forget to put it back in,
Once you put the plug back in, what's the difference?
well, what if they forget?
It's on them.
Yeah, it shouldn't be there.
If we have documentation that this was inspected on such and such a day and found to be in compliance, you're not gonna go take the
Well,
plugs out, are you?
it's-
I'm not.
It,
I switched to propane.
obviously, it's a legal thing.
I agree with
We
you.
don't even know what we know what one person has for an insurance policy. We don't know what the other 15 have. They might be a little better, they might be a little worse.
If they get away with this, you know every insurance company in the state of Connecticut. Look at the foundation problems we have in the state. Same deal. Anytime there's liability, the insurance is gonna figure out a way not to pay it. It's a job. But we really need to be proactive, and the heating season will be upon us before you know it.
I mean, I know a lot of the rules have changed. Maybe if the building inspector looks into it, maybe there's new rules for outside oil tanks, that they have to be contained or covered. I mean, a containment vessel doesn't do any good unless it's covered. To me, that would be in the building codes.
But the building codes don't go retro unless you modify it.
I mean, that's maybe one way he can go in there, and I mean, since we own the maybe because we own the property, we can enforce that.
Have lease agreements be drawn up with the people?
I mean,
They are.
because you're never gonna.
New lease agreements that
People
cover the
go
town.
pull and
and-
drain it, and that's gonna be it.
How do you compel them to sign?
Well, can you modify the lease agreements to mandate that they have to have insurance to cover their oil tank?
Well,
Now, Ms. Person, whatever, said that she called 3 insurance companies that would not.
Selling the property.
Could be because she already had a problem, but
I agree. But until that point, we gotta protect town from serious liability.
Move faster, sell the property.
Now, you say that if the codes have been changed, it wouldn't go into effect. It would go into effect if the vessel was red tagged, because then a new one would have to be, and then they would have to comply with a new code. So if you have tanks in big disrepair, then they just can't go just drop another tank in. They have to bring it up to the latest code.
They have special outside tanks that are double
Yes,
wall.
oh, they certainly do. Or concrete encased. I mean, the town's got both kinds. Many other people do.
Up to like $3 grand.
So what else on South Road?
That's it. I don't think we got nowhere, but interesting.
Well, might I suggest that the building official and the Warehouse Point Fire Marshal come together with us and have a little meeting and see if there's something we might be able to resolve.
Okay.
They're the two inspecting
Yeah, all right.
type people.
Okay, good idea. We'd have some. Thanks. Okay, pump station. Scout Hall Pump Station. And the reason I brought that up was we, at the last meeting, proposed that we spend $56,000 for a generator for Scout Hall. And I know there was some talk about that maybe we didn't need to include the air conditioning, and that would require a less of a generator, but then other people said, well, it could be a cooling center too for the summer, so we could use it as an emergency shelter and a cooling center. So maybe we will stick with the $56,000 that we allocated. But also, what we've done until we hear what the town, or what the state budget is, what the approved budget of the state is, we've really frozen non-essential spending. So when I go to the Board of Finance meeting tomorrow, and I'll talk about this a little, I'm going to suggest that we do not spend the money at this time until we get a state budget and really decide how we financially stand. That's where I'm coming from. I'm just let you know and looking for some feedback if you want to.
Well,
yeah.
Feedback I got is it should have gone to the building commission in the first place. It hasn't been there.
Well,
You know, again, we're circumventing process. We set up the processes and then we don't follow them. Hasn't been an emergency until for 20 years, all of a sudden it's an emergency.
well, it's not an emergency. We make it an emergency shelter, but you don't have to do
We
it.
already got two. Whatever, that's
Okay.
my comment, and I'll shut up, I said enough on that.
Okay.
We should follow procedures, and it should be in CIP.
Well, and no, and that's a good point, because we didn't really specify how it would be funded, and it could be funded by CIP. Yeah.
So I move to reconsider and add an appropriation not to exceed $56,000 for a generator to power the pump station and Scout Hall. Motion to reconsider has to be made by somebody who was on the prevailing side of the motion at a previous meeting. What that does is it allows us to rescind the authorization. But first, we need to vote to reconsider.
I'll second that. It was on that vote.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to reconsider. Any discussion?
I said my piece.
Well, there are generators that were there, that initially were offered to run the pump station. Not the Scout Hall, but just the pump station. Yeah, it was.
No, we won
No, it's
both.
not.
Yes,
There
it
were
was.
two at the time.
They were never offered.
They were offered right here in this
They
room.
were offered,
By you.
they were offered.
They
And I
were
don't know
offered.
what happened to those two generators that were offered to us. I don't know if they're still available, but one of those could certainly run just the pump station.
They run the pump station in Scout Hall except for the air conditioner.
Well, there you have it.
And they're right there.
So,
And they could be done for a hell of a lot less than $50,000.
So as I understand it, we had initially asked Lenny and Joe to meet with the Public Works guys to report back on this. And again, as I understand it, they did that, and they reported back to us. I was not at the meeting where they reported back to us, so I didn't have the opportunity, I didn't avail myself of the opportunity to hear what their perspective was.
Well, all we reported back to this board, if you don't mind, I will tell you. All we did was report back to this board with a generator that would run the whole entire building, and the size and the cost for a complete installation. That's all we did. We did not recommend that it be done. Personally, well, you don't care what I think personally, but that's it. I mean, we came here, we were asked, we contacted our generator vendor. They inspected, there were 2 generators there, neither one of we weren't looking at the time, we weren't looking at just the pump stations, we were looking at running the building. They looked at the 2, and our town electrician looked at the 2 generators, deemed them not worthy of running the entire building with or without the air conditioning, I don't remember. So they gave us a price to install, a generator that would run the entire building, everything. A budget number, including
And what was
our
that budget number?
$56,000.
So we approved the thing you guys had suggested we do.
We don't know what you approved.
Yes,
I don't think we're at the meeting that you approved it.
No.
they did.
We authorized an additional appropriation of up to $56,000.
Right, that was 2 meetings later.
Yes.
We were tasked with the original problem started with the pump station, and the pumps need to be upgraded. We were tasked as the facilities people to look into that. We had a meeting with the sewer plant. Sewer plant said that once they take the station over, the EEP says it needs to be generated. That's the law. So we volunteered to look at the generators and get a budget number, a price, to see what the cost was. Our recommendation to this board was, if you're going to do it, buy a generator that's going to run the whole building. And that was our recommendation. You guys took it, and then a couple meetings, well, last meeting, you approved the purchase of one.
For the amount that you recommend.
For the amount of the budget number, then would have to go out for bid. So, but it's a budget number. It's the pad, the gas line, the plumbing, the outdoor switch for the generator. Soup to nuts. No, hey, we need more money. It's a one-shot deal, and then we'll go from there. Like we did at the fire department. We replaced that generator. We asked for 50. We spent 40.
So we essentially followed your recommendation.
Yes.
Is that still your recommendation?
To replace the one at Scout Hall?
Yeah.
There's no replacement.
There's no replacement.
To install a new it's our recommendation. If you're going to do it, do the whole building.
We're not recommending you doing it. We're recommending if you're going to do it,
please don't do it.
do the whole building.
We've converted Public Works to only running 4 or 5 circuits to the generator that used to be here. Fire department was the same way. It had an older generator that only ran the downstairs. Well, now it runs the whole building. So you have a warming and a cooling station right there, the senior center. The whole building runs now. Prior to that, it was just the fire department. So is it necessary for you to go purchase this right now for emergency state? I can't say it. I'm not the director of emergency management. Personally, I think we'll be okay if something happens. We do have a tow-behind generator, and chances, the last catastrophic event, the high schools, we managed at the high school. We had nothing on this side of town. You can't hope and dream that, or you can't think something bad's going to happen. We don't know. Yeah, I lost power twice in 1 week. I haven't lost power since 2010.
That's when you bought your generator.
Right. I got one under the bench I haven't used since 2010. So, it was only, we had no recommendation. We did what we were tasked to do.
But everybody is in agreement that we need to put in a generator.
No.
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 But if they take over,
The WPCA needs to generate the pump station
right,
if they take it over. We do not need to generate the building if they take over the pump station.
so a small generator.
There are pump stations all over town that have generators with them.
Yeah. How much does a generator to power the pump station cost?
Paul had a price for that,
I presented it at the
$25,000.
last meeting,
I don't remember.
$22,000 to $25,000.
So we could spend 22 to 25, or we could spend 40 to 56.
I think the key is you don't have to spend the 22 to 25 if the WPCA takes over the station.
Except what's their incentive for taking it over?
That was the agreement at the meeting.
Yeah, but the meeting doesn't have the authority to give that.
We did,
There was no agreement that we were
Well,
going
that's
to
it. There's no
generate
agreement.
that. And we had building committee members there and such, and
Tom was there.
that's just not a true statement. We did not commit to generating the pump station.
So, under state law, the pump station must be generated. Who pays for that?
I couldn't tell you that, but that's what we're told.
Fair point.
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
If it's
He's
owned by the
telling you that.
WPCA.
If it's owned by the town, it needs to be generated, I would think, because it still needs to function.
Why? Why?
Isn't that a public health concern?
Yes, it is. You got 3 buildings on there, all on wells, nobody has a generator at this point. You're gonna flush the toilet once or twice and you're out of water, that's the end of it. You got 750 gallons, according to Paul, of storage capacity in there. It'll certainly go for a few hours.
So
It's not a public health hazard because there's always sewage in that wet well.
So the 3 properties that are also on the pump station also have septic?
No, they have sewer,
They have sewer.
but they have wells.
For
Wells,
water.
wells.
They pump their own water, so
no
there's
water
no water
out there.
without power at this point.
My house doesn't have water without power.
Correct. Or does it?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, no, that's right, it goes in before you get there.
So,
You need a generator.
you think about what?
I got one for you.
Would you like to buy a generator?
No, I don't want a generator.
I have a couple extras.
This is a horrible problem.
But my house, if I didn't have a generator, does not have water when the power's off.
Right.
So
So why are we spending $22,000?
that's what I'm trying to say.
Other than.
It would be nice to have, take the thing, put it into CIP, plan it and do it right, if we get a state budget. But without a state budget, we shouldn't be spending absolutely as little as possible. Because we don't know what gifts they're gonna give us in Hartford before this is over with. I got a feeling they're not done. You can do what you
Very
want.
well said.
So just after noon today, the last pump failed. We made it work. We're gonna be running it manually until Monday when we replace one of the pumps.
I mean, you got one guy in there like, cranking
Yep,
away?
that's right, bicycle pump.
Yeah.
And July 24th, the one pump will get installed, and during the first or second week of August, the total rebuild of the pump station will take place.
At which point WPCA will own it?
No,
No.
No.
not without a memo of understanding,
What's that?
not without a memo of understanding from this board and signed by both of us. We don't own it. We're doing this because it has to be done. We're not doing this for any other reason. And we are the people who do it. That's why we're doing it. You can't get just any jamoke to go in and rebuild a pump station and have it last for 15 years like it has to.
What happens if this board or the Board of Finance chooses to do nothing? What happens then?
It's a great question.
Yeah, hypothesize for me here. I don't know. What happens? What happens to the
Well, okay.
pump station? What happens to the people who live there? What happens to
It
Scout
all,
Hall?
it all hinges on the memo of understanding to clear up the ownership.
Yes.
Without that existing, the WPCA does not own that pump station.
Is there a draft of an MOA?
It was only the results of the meeting we had with Public Works that we brought in and said, here's what we talked about. We need a memo of understanding based on this to change the ownership, to clarify it for the record. Once that record is clarified, then the generator's mandatory.
The WPCA owns property, right?
Owns property.
Who owns your facility? Does the
Town
town
of
own
East
that?
Windsor.
The
Town of
owns
East
that?
Windsor owns everything.
So, when you say, so the town of East Windsor owns everything, does that mean that we own the other, was it
Yeah,
pump
but I'm
stations?
sorry, the responsibility for the sewer system, the pipes in the ground, the pump stations and all is
We own that, the
ours.
town owns that.
Town owns it, we're responsible.
Okay, so,
But in this case, we're not. And
so-
what we're trying to do is clarify that.
so in the MOA, we're not actually relinquishing ownership, which would involve sale of property, which would
No,
involve
it's
the
an
town meeting.
understanding of who's responsible.
All right, that's different from ownership.
Fair enough. Okay, but the question, like what happens to the
Yeah.
pump station? Pump station will be rebuilt regardless.
So we do
Because it's
nothing if the problem
necessary.
is fixed.
Okay? That's gonna happen no matter what. That's a health and safety issue. When it doesn't pump sewage, it's a health and safety issue. If there's no sewage to pump, it's not a health and safety.
But there are still three people who are trying to avail themselves of that. Like, as we speak, there could be somebody who's
If
trying
it's
to
in
pump.
use, it has to work,
Yes.
period. Okay? If it's not in use, it doesn't have to work. So, Dick's right. There are no generators at this point in time, so when power goes out there, water stops flowing. Pretty much stops the whole operation. Till the power comes back on. That's a fact.
Pump would
One
work
of those
when
places
power
have a
comes
generator though.
Excuse me?
What if one of those places have a
Well,
generator?
they do not today.
They
That's,
don't, Steve.
we're dealing with
Check.
today's facts, there is none.
One on
Will
Larry's
that change?
Property does not, he doesn't have a generator on his
He
own
does not.
property up there?
There is no generator on any of the three properties involved. There will be, but will be is the same as all kinds of things you can say. It isn't there now.
Could
That's
be
the
there
point.
tomorrow.
Well, it could be, but it isn't. So we're dealing with where we are at this meeting. There are no generators. Now, putting a generator out on that little piece of grass next to the street isn't very practical. Might have to lose some parking lot. Whatever, I mean, anything can be done. Then you got this nice big box. They're all about the same size physically, by the way. So you got this thing that's on the corner here, sitting out on the street,
Where is it?
as opposed, it isn't anywhere.
There's no, oh, you're talking about the generator, I thought you were talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm talking about the generator. You got one on the corner of the
I thought you were
building
talking-
here.
I thought you were talking about the pump
Back.
station.
Same size box, no matter what size the generator, okay? The capacity of the generator has nothing to do with the physical size in general. There's some minor differences, but effectively that size box. Sitting out, oh, there's not enough room out there right now to put one. So that would have to change. But, put one there, or do you put one farther in that does the whole building? You spend 25 grand or 50 grand, this is the kind of numbers you're talking about. You can look at it from whose money, but it's still money. And what's accomplished, very little or a lot. There you go, I don't know.
And you talk about available cash.
Right.
I totally understand this, that the money is a major issue. There's no question about it.
Can I ask a question? Is the Scout Hall part of the emergency action plan and
No,
not cited as
no.
a site for boarding or anything?
No.
Okay.
Snow can use it.
Doesn't mean you couldn't use it if it was available, but it is not currently part of the plan.
Maybe the plan needs to be revised.
I wonder if you could get money for a generator if you were going to use it for an emergency shelter.
Probably.
Yeah, probably, if somebody applies. But the idea is we still got planning, processes to go through, and they should be followed. There's no reason it can't go to CIP and be rated and funded.
It's already in CIP.
It is?
It is?
Scout Off Building Committee proposed that to CIP.
Yeah, you're right.
Well,
Yeah, you're right.
Well, we got chastised
No, they
for
did.
not doing that.
Proposed and incorporated are two different things.
Right.
Okay, fair
You're right.
enough, but
He
you,
is right.
you're still talking about proposal, not incorporation. The point was, it's been submitted to CIP.
When does the building committee meet next?
Commission.
Commission.
Permanent Building Commission.
Last Monday of the month. I think it's the 31st.
I think it is. We don't meet again until the 1st. So, could we ask the Permanent Building Commission what their thoughts are?
Well, technically, the building commission chairman was there, along with the vice chair and one member, two members actually. But it really, the legwork was done by the town, which it would have been relinquished to the town to get a proposal to do the job. So the building committee basically did their job by, here you go, selectmen, this is the proposal of what it's going to cost to do.
Yeah, but
No, the commission did not do that. Certain members of it did.
The facilities operations manager and the public works director were assigned by the first selectman to get a price. We did not circumvent the building committee at all, Dick. We brought Al in.
I go to every building commission meeting.
No, we didn't. All we did was get a
Never been-
price.
All we did was,
We
but
haven't
all we did was
endorsed
get a
anything.
price.
Yeah, that's fine.
But a department, well, technically a department asked for a price, we got a price.
Right.
But has the project been approved? No. The building commission would be the ones who would manage and get all the prices and open the bids.
No kidding.
They wouldn't go out and get the price for it.
Dale.
I believe the real issue here is the $56,000. We don't have it.
True.
So,
kidding.
I mean, whether we put this in CIP for next year, it's certainly not there for the immediate future. And to Paul's point, you know, putting a small generator next to the pump station isn't gonna work. So, if we decide not to put a generator until next year, could you oversee the pump station?
They have been since 2001.
Right,
Correct. That is not changing.
okay, okay. All right. So, we're beating it to death again.
We have a motion and a second.
what is the
Alright.
motion in the second?
He made the motion, I second.
To reconsider?
Right,
Reconsider.
that's as far as we got.
Remember that? That was an hour ago, but whatever.
Guys, we really need to vote on motions.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's no more discussion on reconsidering, is there any more discussion on reconsidering?
No.
All right, all those in favor of reconsidering?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right. So then the ayes have it. All those opposed? All right, so we're going to reconsider.
You know, the way we keep nickel and diming stuff around here and arguing about everything, this town's never gonna move forward.
Okay, so
Never gonna move forward.
do we have to reconsider now, or we can just leave it for another time? I guess we can leave it for another time.
What's proper
When does
procedure?
CIP go back, Joe? When do we start the CIP process?
As soon as the budget's adopted, then we usually have a meeting.
Yeah, because we usually then own
Right.
what we've been given, and then we start the process for next year.
Because we don't have really a We have an acting treasurer. I think we were just trying to hold off a little bit until we had a full-time treasurer for some advice.
I wouldn't go anywhere with that, and like I said, until we have a state budget.
The general consensus is don't do nothing until the budget.
Right.
So,
Yes.
Crazy.
Yep, yep.
you know, we can have a meeting anytime, but normally we're usually directed by the town. Either the
Because then
first
we
selectman
start
or
the
the
next-
treasurer.
We start the next process now for next year.
I should hope we start a little earlier than last year. But again, we're hoping we get some direction.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay, well, does anybody object if we move on to the next item?
Nope.
Okay, the next item is 0 Rye Street, and I found out it's number 2 Rye Street. And that is the one next to the Broadbrook School. I don't know, Steve said he might bring in some charts.
I couldn't find mine, but I did get one from J.R. Russo.
Okay.
It's not exact like the one I have. The one I have has a retention pond on it, which is actually in the, on the school property, not on the piece of land that we were originally gonna trade for that schoolhouse property. But it does show some, you know, the parking, and it shows one little sliver of the parking that goes onto this property that this gentleman wants to sell to us. And I can't see where we would need to buy that property to gain this little section right here. Right here, this section. Okay? And the sediment pond was down in here. It wasn't even on this property. And plus it's wetland, so you can't put a sediment pond in wetlands, as we all know. It has to be in a non-wetland area.
Okay, so, but if we didn't do this, we could add more parking right down here.
20 anyway.
Be awful nice to have some topos to go with it. Like, this is pretty steep property.
Well, from what he told me, this area here is, I mean, lower, but you could always fill it. You could bring the grade up and have it level, everything level.
Except for this.
Yeah, but forget this. See, you I agree with you. All right, so you start the parking over here.
We own this currently?
Yeah, this is the school property. He wanted to give us a sliver of land here.
Yeah, I do, I'm looking for it. Well, I know, this is another, this is
Slow ride, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
This is it.
This back here drops off
Well,
like
this,
this.
yeah, this is colorized.
Now, did you say he wants to give up the house lot and all that stuff now?
Yeah,
the
he
deal?
just wants to get, yeah.
Right, so now he's giving us some, trying to give us a little gravy to make the deal.
I just think he doesn't want to go through the hassle of,
This doesn't have too many topos.
but here's one with topos. And,
This is a lot more accurate.
see, there's a whole bunch of, if you go to 110, the school is 100, the ball field back there is 110. And
It's between 110 and 130.
30, yeah. And 130 is where the parking lot is now. So,
Usually go 2-foot topos when you're drawing something like
Yeah.
this here. This is not reading 101.
so this, I guess that would be 130. You're saying,
Well, see, there's no topos on this. There's not even spot
well,
elevations.
you agree on this?
Well, there is there, but
Yeah, not on this.
this has got topos, and they show the town properties right here.
Oh, okay.
There's 130 right there,
130.
which is sugar. I don't have my tape with me.
124, 122,
Yeah, I need a roller
118,
though. Lori,
114.
Because you got a scale 1 and 20.
No, but it's
So
right
anybody
here,
got a
right
ruler?
here. No, it's right here, 114.
But you need a ruler, Bob, to know how far they are
No,
apart.
I'm off.
To see it.
Yeah, but you know the thing of
I
it
don't
is, the
need
way
I'm
they
off
park
duty
over
too.
here now,
What am I saying?
where they park
Just
right
here.
now, they're getting 30 cars in there now.
Okay,
So when you go and redesign all this,
Yeah.
now you're gonna have to have a retention pond,
Yep.
okay, to go with all this new design. Right now, it's the way it is, and they just put a little swale along the side with riprap, so it would run down slowly down into that ravine.
Well, it says wetlands regulated area. You can definitely go in there.
Excuse me?
You can definitely go in there. You can go in that 150-foot area.
How much do they want for
I
this?
do it my own
You
one.
want 120. But there's a buildable lot there that we can sell.
We're not in the land business.
It was 40 feet back off the road. It's an elevation
Do you want us
132.
to solve it or not?
We do have a parking lot.
It's 80 feet, let's see, 20, 40, 60, 80 feet back, it's 132. And then drops 2 feet and 10 feet,
But you see this
and
parking,
2 feet,
this
and
right here, this
13
feet.
feet. It goes down pretty
I
good.
plow it.
Oh, no, there's.
I don't do the fancy.
Right about
I
here.
don't do them that way. I
Okay,
just
right
do a
about
12
here,
inch and
this
this
goes.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but there's a whole bunch.
Yeah, I know.
So they
You've
must
got
be,
a good one.
this thing must
Most of mine are
proposing
architected.
to fill this, and bring it up to grade, and build this thing. Because this drops right off. If I go off this sidewalk with a truck, which I have,
Oh, yeah.
we've had to have a payloader come and pull us up out of there.
You can see right here, you can see where Steve's talking. He's actually back in here. You see how the contour lines are going? They're going.
Well, they must be proposing with this to fill this thing and raise this up.
Okay.
But I mean, we could eliminate, say, 1, 2, 3, if you started right here. So you lose these, but you could still have all these parking. And you wouldn't have to spend 100 and something thousand for this.
Okay, all right.
I can't see lots of East Windsor ain't bringing $100,000 anyway.
No.
So
Well,
let's forget that one.
I'd say if we can't afford $56,000 for a generator.
We're certainly not gonna spend
All
100.
right.
Well, at least we thought about it.
About it.
So again, we're gonna say no to this like we said the last time?
I'm not spending 100 grand.
Yeah,
Well, so we're not, so this is off the table now, right?
it's off the table for now. That's right.
You wanna keep this?
Want to make it a motion and take it off the
In case you
table?
wanna look at it or something?
I'll just take it off the, I won't put it on the agenda anymore until I get $100,000.
Or even that.
120. No, until I get,
134.9 was the purchase price from John Burnham for an entire price.
Oh, yeah.
Sold the house for 110.
okay.
I think you gotta be looking at
On the first
a mistake all the way around.
All right.
Yeah, it's a mistake. You can't get 100 for a lot in this town for the most.
For 100 grand, you could build that parking lot.
Paid 134.9 for
Put a wall right on the line.
All right. Never mind.
And you want this, Bob, or not?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Put 2nd Street on it for your information.
Okay. Now, we get into new business.
Yeah, she's still here.
All right, so the Melrose Bridge grant contract.
See, Barb, we didn't forget you.
Jason, your agenda item, so. What? Melrose Bridge contract, didn't you want this put on the agenda?
I wanted to see the contract.
Oh, you didn't want them on the agenda?
No,
Oh, okay. Well, are you happy with them?
I'm always happy with it, sure.
Oh, Jesus.
I do have some questions about it.
Okay.
And I don't know the answer to these, but under the terms of the contract, are we allowed to start, so when under the terms of the contract, are we allowed to start work before the money is received?
We can't pay.
Or if you want to come up, you're welcome.
Come on up, Barb. Get on the hard seat.
Let's see if they're.
Come on, Dick, give her some support.
We're not getting the money.
Oh.
We have a line item, a number 2017-296 in the state treasurer's accounting. the money is in there. When we get the invoice from work done, it will be submitted, and then it will be paid out of that. The town will never get the money up front.
Great. So we don't actually have the money.
No.
The state has the money and they're allowing us to use it.
They have just given us, yes, our number, so as of last week, when we got the number, we can now start to do invoiced work.
And can we submit invoices dated prior to when we were awarded the grant, or when we?
What kind of invoices? Invoiced work that's going to get paid cannot have happened. No work can have happened before that number.
Okay. So does any work happen?
Only
Other than the 1,200
volunteer
that we
work.
did?
Volunteer work,
Okay.
which is fine, because that's in kind and not going to be invoiced.
Okay. Is the 85 subject to the town's bid process? Do they need to solicit bids?
Well, we did, in a sense, go through that. We got a bid for $500,000, a bid for $165,000, and the one bid that said met with the $85,000 limit we had, and we took the one that we could build the bridge with.
Well, actually, there was another one in there that was 138 something, and the final one was 92.5.
Yeah, I remember all that. Were these bids or quotes?
Quotes.
Quotes. It wasn't a sealed bid or anything.
Do we need to, because of the dollar amount, and I'm less sure now because we don't actually have possession of the cash, but do we need to go through sealed competitive bids, or?
I don't think we do. I think that we're getting the bridge we want for the money from that.
This is a very specialized.
And that's the only
thing.
person that would do it.
There aren't a lot of companies that do this, is what I've been told.
So you're sole sourcing it? So we had four total respondents when you solicited quotes.
People who do this iron work that would have done it.
Joe, are you satisfied with the bid versus the quote?
That's not fair at all.
That's
Not fair.
That's so far above
Does
what
what
I,
has happened meet the town policy?
I don't think that's for us to answer.
Who determines that? The Board of Selectmen sets the policy.
I think the Board of Selectmen has to
Or the
determine if
first
it
selectman.
meets the policy.
You're looking there.
Won't be asking us.
Okay, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
That over with?
I mean, do you have a copy of the policy?
I don't have a copy of the policy.
Should get one.
That would have been very helpful, Lenny, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next item, which is discussion of contracts regarding electricity, gas, and oil. I guess the gas and oil are easy to deal with because we don't have a contract. So Lenny is what I think you call it, buying off the rack? Is that
Yep.
So we're buying our gas and oil at market price, wherever we can get it the cheapest.
We don't buy in bulk anymore, and
We do.
Okay.
Well, no. We have not entered into a new the contract we were in for diesel fuel, unleaded gasoline, and heating oil expired June 30th.
okay.
We have not gotten into a new contract for any of those because the prices are kind of good now. And even the company, we were dealing with East River Energy, who had the best prices when we got into the contract. I think it might have even been Krog, I'm not sure. But they're even recommending for now, just buy off the rack, as they say, because and honestly, as far as heating oil goes, it's the dog pound in us.
Yeah, I was gonna say very little heating oil.
So
Getting less and
I have a
less.
feeling we're gonna just buy that. I'm gonna call and get prices like I do for my house. See who's got because we're not gonna
No,
use that much at the garage, and the
Well,
dog
there's no
pound's got a
savings.
275 gallon tank, and
there's no savings there when you have to store it either,
Don't
you know,
tank.
so,
and I'm not gonna commit to anything, because you gotta commit to gallons and all that.
yeah, I remember.
And we're doing pretty good with the diesel and unleaded now too, so we'll see how we'll keep an eye on it, see what.
No, my question here was, and thank you very much for that explanation, was that this was signed on March 28th by the first selectman and by Teresa Kane.
No, that's the
without
electric.
any
you're-
And now we're talking
recommendation.
That's
electricity.
electric.
That's electric.
This is electric. I know,
Okay,
that's
So
what I'm
we're done
looking
with
at.
gas and oil, right?
This, yeah, we're done with gas and oil.
Okay.
But the electric contract was signed back on 3/28/17. I don't remember this being brought to the board where we authorized signature of the contract. That's my question.
Okay, and I'm not sure if you were here, Jason and brought this up at a prior meeting. And Lenny can help me if I don't really say it correctly, but what happened, one, is that CCM, Connecticut Council of Municipalities, buys bulk electricity for all the towns in CCM. They have a lawyer and they solicit bids, and when the bids come in, you only have a half an hour to decide on what your bids are. And so Lenny was there, Teresa Kane was there, I was there, and I guess Roger Baker, I'm not sure. But the bids came in, we analyzed them, and went with the cheapest
So
price.
there was no time. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we should have been notified of it before.
And that's
all,
what
Bob.
Jason said. If
Yeah.
we go out for a large contract, I should,
Yeah,
let you know ahead of time we're doing that.
because you did follow the bidding process and
Yeah.
all the rest of it. It's just, when somebody catches you on the street and asks you some of these questions and
Yeah, okay.
kind of, we're supposed to know what's going on.
Okay, the next item is liens on Prospect Hill property. This was an estate that's in, and what happened is Patty wanted to discuss this with us and had me put it on the agenda, but since the agenda has gone out, Patty, there's complications that existed, so she said that she's got to look into those before she brings it to the board. So we're going to, if it's okay, we'll just skip by that item. And so then we'll move on to new business, approval of certificate, resolution, and request for matching funds for smart growth transit-oriented development.
Put you all at once, so we could have got you out here. I didn't realize there was no waiting list.
Well,
I would have appreciated that. But
Sorry.
I'm here anyway. So I did this last year, we were not awarded the grant, but this year I put in for another Connecticut OPM Responsible Growth and Transit-Oriented Development Program grant. In essence, the project goals are to expand and enhance the existing land uses and densities to create new opportunities for redevelopment while encouraging residents and visitors to take advantage of more transportation choices. This is all on Warehouse Point, I didn't say that. To reduce obstacles, to create additional cultural, retail, service, and investment opportunities, provide additional transit-oriented living opportunities, improve the future pedestrian experience throughout the area, enhance the unique character of the community, and support healthy, safe, and walkable neighborhoods, to respect existing residents and property owners by helping them understand and hopefully embrace meaningful change, and also to create a functional stormwater plan and approach for living scale improvements to address current issues and propose new growth. This is basically a request to do continuation of our studies at Warehouse Point, as we are sandwiched between the casino and the transit-oriented development, and we are in the crosshairs, and we are going to get slammed with development. And I really would like to get the regulations studied and in place before we really get a lot of applications, because we don't want this to get out of hand with development of things that we don't want in our village district. And as you, Jason, I know you were at the last workshop, and we were talking about all the different possibles of redevelopment for some of the sites. And
And the
this
restaurant and the food,
yeah,
the growth.
the
They grow
farm,
the food there, farm to table.
Table restaurant.
restaurants,
That was
things like
good
that.
idea.
So basically, it's to come up with regulations, so we are actually promoting what exactly we truly want in the area. So the grant amount is 137,500. And of that, our match would be 13,700. So the actual grant that we would get would be $123,800. So with that, the only thing I need to submit at this point is the certified resolution from the municipal legislative body, which basically requests, authorizes the Board of Selectmen to submit, or authorizes the town to submit, authorizes the first selectman to sign the grant, should it be awarded, and agrees to comply with the terms and conditions. And part of that would be that they do like to see that you are trying to put in some sort of, money to say that, yeah, we're in this. So last year I did ask for this, and I think I was granted from the Board of Selectmen $15,000, but we never got the award, so I never asked for it. This year I'll be asking for $13,700. I don't need it unless it's actually awarded. So, but I do need to have the certified resolution to them by this Friday in order to have the grant application complete. And that's it. Just simple.
Well, will this grant or the work associated with it in any way make it easier for a Rotary to go into Warehouse Point?
Easier? No. Not necessarily. This is really not, this is working more with the actual uses and the architecture and the setbacks and the mixed use and things like that. The transit-oriented development and the DOT are really going to be the ones that will dictate how the roadway will be ultimately formed, shall we say. And there will be workshops to that extent as well. They will be sponsored by the DOT, not the town.
So I did attend the last transit-oriented development workshop. I thought it was great.
It was.
And I go out of my way to point out to people that PZC often does very inclusive workshops that are informative and well worth the time. I would be very hard pressed to support anything that encourages a Rotary there, no matter what it is.
There's no mention of the Rotary in the entire proposal that I got from our consultants.
But I wouldn't be supportive of that if even the work associated with it could be then lent to making a case for one.
I don't believe that that's part of this project at all whatsoever.
All right.
I mean, the consideration of that is, it's got to be there, but until we're told that it's coming or we know what the design is, we're just working towards what we want to see in our village district.
I don't understand, where they've said it before, and when they had that walk around, you're not going to change Warehouse Point. Nothing you can do, none of this is going to change Warehouse Point. You're not going to widen that road because it can't be done to start with unless you take people's houses.
That's what they're going to do.
Well, then we need to fight them. Okay, we need to fight. And walking around, I don't know what you're going to change in Warehouse Point. You're not going to change anything. Nothing can be changed in Warehouse Point. It is what it is. It's a little town. It's the way it's been forever, and that's the way it's going to stay. What are you going to change? Somebody tell me.
Well, okay.
Explain it to me, except the damn Rotary when they take those two people's houses.
I'm not explaining the Rotary. What you have is a second rail coming in.
I know what's going on.
Okay,
I know all that.
and you know that the Montgomery building's got well over 100 apartments in there.
Yeah, but you realize there was 500 people that worked there, more than that. When
Yeah.
the other building was there,
Okay.
there was 1,000 people that worked there, And every day, they went to work. Every day, they left. Every day, some probably left for lunch. And Dexter's was always still on the other side, probably before I was born. And all the trucks came out of there like they do today, along with all that traffic coming out of that factory. There never was an issue. Never was an issue.
Well,
Now,
all
of
I'm
a sudden,
saying
we
is-
have an issue.
What I'm saying is that the people living in the Montgomery building now might, if we had, might come to shops in Warehouse Point. And,
Okay, so let them drive across the bridge and go to,
yeah, I'm not arguing
Main
about
Fish
it. I'm
House
not
or-
saying a roundabout. I'm just saying that.
no, but I'm talking about, why can't they still come to Warehouse Point and go to Geisler's?
They
and-
can.
They can.
So what is all this revitalization stuff gonna do? The stuff is there.
Well, I know, but it's a plan to grow, if we do grow.
Grow where?
There's a lot of land.
There's
There's a
actually
lot
a
of
lot
land,
of vacant land.
The
and-
land you have is on the Leda farm. Okay, that's the land, that's what we have a lot of land up that way. Okay,
I
but
guess that they call it the Blue Ditch.
The
which is-
people, the first thing, the blue ditch is a big problem. That's gotta be addressed. I know that for sure. That's a headache.
so that's the one that goes by the firehouse.
Right by the firehouse, goes up back of Geisler's and drains that area all the way down through, and it's a mess.
Okay,
That's
so
part of this.
So what do you
The other thing is,
build there?
you get the drainage and you could build something. Without infrastructure, you
land
can't
to
build
build
anything.
anything.
Sure
So
there
part of
is.
the-
Well, look where Balf's package store was. That's a big piece of land and a little tiny building on it. You think if somebody wasn't offered the right money, they wouldn't develop that property? There's a certain cafe right down the street. That could certainly be redeveloped. Some of those houses, I'm sure you could do something a lot nicer. We're not gonna
What do
go,
we do, throw the people out of their
no,
homes to do
absolutely
this?
not.
But they'll be granted an opportunity.
It all
to
stays the way it
redevelop.
is unless somebody wants to change it. But we need to have a plan there, so when they do, it's gonna have to conform to the grand plan. And did you make any of those meetings? They had, the consultant put on some pretty nice presentation. They had some nice conceptual drawings. I mean, this isn't gonna happen tomorrow morning. This is probably not gonna happen in 20 years, but I bet it'll start.
There's also growth, as Lori pointed out, with the casino. Already, I think land has been sold for a new hotel or something.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, Jimmy Balch's
Yeah,
property, I
yeah,
believe.
and so other things like that are gonna creep down, and people are gonna be looking for stuff around. So this plan is how to manage the development, instead of letting people just do whatever they want. There'll be some scheme to the whole thing.
I know some other people have been approached to make a deal.
Yeah, so that's one thing.
I've had calls for new residential components and at least 3 hotels due to the casino, not even because of the transit-oriented
Yeah.
development.
Right.
So what this is going to do is, first of all, come up with a stormwater management plan so we can accommodate drainage through the Blue Ditch and understand the flooding of the Connecticut River. And that will afford us the opportunities to increase impervious areas, perhaps improve the infrastructure, increase some densities, provide for some mixed-use housing, and try to get more feet on the street, as they say, more pedestrian walkways, bikeways, and architectural styles, and the type of development. And we're using Dean Street as our, as the mothership. That's exactly what we'd like to replicate, is that type of housing. And that seems to be what everybody seems to like. So this is for redevelopment opportunities. I mean, Jim Nielsen actually attended the last meeting, and he was very pleased with the possibility of being able to redevelop this site in some certain ways and add things to it. You know, we're trying. The millennials are the type of customers that are going to be going into the Montgomery building and to possible housing that we might develop within that corridor. So every year, I'm always asked, what grants am I going after? So I'm going after grants.
And I think, and it cost us $14,000, but
Yeah.
like
Well,
I say, with those
140.
two things happening, I think it's well worth it to do planning in Warehouse Point. So I would.
I got one other question. On her figures, she has 13.7 for the matching 10%. But then I note there's a 7,500 will be for printing and workshop costs,
Yeah, well, that'll be part
plus
of that.
staff time.
Yeah.
Now, was that staff time make up the balance between 7,500 and 13.7?
Well,
Or is this
not
an additional
necessarily.
money
Well,
that
staff time
we're...
would be in addition, so the printing, workshop fees, you know, if we're gonna get.
Well, what I'm getting at is out of the 13.7, if you take 7,500 out of it, is the balance, is that covered by, you know, by putting our time of our staff that's already on salary in there?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in essence, the actual cash would be $7,500. We're not committed to spend anyway. Because your salary
Right.
and everybody else is
Yeah.
already paid, it's just
That's
which
true.
project do they work on. So you're really only looking at 7,500 bucks.
I'd have to verify.
More or
that
less.
this week, yeah.
They're gonna hold you to the dollar.
Maybe 8,000, but, yeah. So,
So roughly, we're only committing
the
ourselves.
in-kind services is difficult to calculate.
Oh, I know.
You really have to keep track of it, but, you know, it's based on the hourly wage of people working on it, so.
I bet you could do
You know
it.
that I'm gonna be working a lot on this and many other things, so. You know, I have been denied pretty much every funding request that I've had over the last 2-3 years, so. Where I have no resources. This is the only resource I could come up with. So.
Okay, if somebody will make you want a resolution, is that correct?
Yeah, the certified resolution is really the key right now. And if, you know, I'm warning you about the request for the funding later, if we are awarded this, but I do need the certified resolution to the OPM by Friday in order to be eligible.
I move to approve the certified resolution of the municipal, I move to approve the 2017 Responsible Growth and Transit-Oriented Development Grant Program.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The only thing I hope it happens after we have the state budget. If it happens.
Thank you very much.
Okay, discussion of policies and procedures, and I'll read, Jason wrote a memo saying, is there any documentation? And I said no, and Amanda wrote an email and copied you guys in, and I'll read what it says. Over the last 6 months, I have been in the process of drafting several policies with the approval of Bob that pertain to our employees, which I think the town would benefit from. However, I'm unsure of the implementation process. To be consistent, I've looked back in personnel policies of the town that were implemented in July of 2014, since that's when most of them seem to have been put in place. To see what the process was, unfortunately, there was no record of personnel policies being brought to the Board of Selectmen for approval, so the process is unclear to me. Then she goes on, as the laws change, it is important that our personnel policies be reviewed and or updated if necessary approximately every 6 months. And then she listed a charter thing, but the charter thing really dealt with non-union employees. So the question is, and I did bring one policy that she wrote. It's for adverse weather conditions, and it says, this policy is one of personal safety and responsibility. It's up to each non-essential employee to determine in their own best interest when, actually I can pass it out, I've got copies.
Well, you said she's written several of them?
Yes.
Why don't we just get them all in one packet?
Right. All right.
We go through them and decide how to implement them. I mean, there's no sense going through them individually because they're going to be implemented all the same way.
Well, my questions would be, what would be the process? I think that's what she said. One way, we could have Pullman and Conley review them first, and then the Board of Selectmen could review them, and then they could be implemented. Or we have the board review them, and then Pullman and Conley review them. That might be the better way to do it.
Subject to legal review.
Also, and maybe we should ask the union, we should have the unions review them at some point. So there's just what process should we go through once she has a procedure?
Other than the inclement weather policy, do you have do you know what other policies she's working on?
I'm thinking.
It's okay, we can do
I
it next time, but generally speaking, you know, as the policy-making board, if, and this has happened in the past, where town staff has recommended policies for the board's consideration, we either ratified them, rejected them, or amended them.
Okay.
But, you know, I think that you're probably right in saying that it would be best for her to bring us the policies, and if we agree with them, submit them for legal review, and then be done with it.
Okay, that's what we'll do then.
What we should do, though, is go back through and dig out the ones that are in effect now, put them in a little loose leaf format. I mean, there's policies for purchasing, there's policies for lots of things.
Well, this is-
And we need to get these all together in one place.
Well, let's start with the employee policies.
That's fine.
But the overall process for policy adoption is the same.
Is here.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But we really need to see what's out there already, because I'm sure there's been a lot of stuff adopted over the years.
Yes.
We really
Yeah,
need this
no,
all.
we can do that.
Should be just, okay.
All right, I'll bring all the policies. Okay.
All you can find, anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Now 11F, discussion of senior food vouchers program.
Okay, so it's no secret that the legislature has failed to adopt a budget for the biennium. And as part of that omission on their part, a number of programs have been defunded during the resource allocation plan. There's the possibility that some or all of those programs may be reinstated when and if they pass a budget. Nobody knows when that will be, but one of the programs that has been defunded was the Senior Food Vouchers Program, which is part of the Seniors Farmers Market Nutrition Program. This is run by the Department of Agriculture, and it's run off of both a federal and a state appropriation, the intention of which is to provide voucher booklets to low-income senior citizens that can be redeemed at specified locations for fresh Connecticut-grown produce. So this is what I'm proposing is, in the absence of the state budget, and since we're in the midst of the growing season, growing and harvesting season, I did some research into how many booklets were issued to the town, and we had 100 booklets that were issued to us and sent to the senior center. Each booklet has a value. Each booklet contains 6 $3 vouchers for a value of $18. So it's a total of $1,800 that the town has allotted to it to put into the hands of low-income seniors for the purchase of locally grown fresh produce. So because the legislature still has not adopted a budget, and these checks are currently simply sitting at the senior center backed by nothing, I'd like to see the town of East Windsor back them. And what that would mean is we would have to appropriate $1,800 to be used at a certified farm stand in town, which has not yet been certified, but I had a conversation with Tom Baggett, and he would be willing to undergo the process to become certified, so that we would be able to get the vouchers to East Windsor seniors, have them spend the vouchers at Baggett's. Baggett would then be able to get the value of the vouchers back from the town. What that does is reinstates the program, steps in where the state has not acted. It supports locally grown agriculture, and it provides fresh produce for low-income seniors. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's what I would like to see us do.
Seems
You
to
wanna
me
make-
you're supporting one farmer in town and not the others.
Do you know others who produce locally grown fresh produce in mass? I don't. That is
They
available
don't
for
have
retail
to
sale.
produce it in mass.
They do, though.
What is somebody gonna buy with a lousy 18 bucks these days?
Well, the problem is that in order for the voucher program to be, and this is a USDA requirement, in order for the voucher program to, in order for it to qualify, they need to go through a certified farmer's market, which we no longer have, or have a farm stand that becomes certified to collect them. It needs to be used on fresh produce only. Those are federal regulations. So I wasn't necessarily looking to pick Baggett out of a crowd here. He's just the only person in town that I'm aware of who grows fresh produce for retail sale
No, absolutely not.
on a scale that can satisfy 100 people.
The apple orchards in town here. Grow apples.
The apple orchards grow apples, but they don't grow,
That's food.
I'm talking like squash, cucumbers, tomatoes.
Yep.
Rikely doesn't
So
do retail
apples
sales.
don't
grow
I checked
squash.
with them, they don't do retail sales.
No, they don't, but Larry Pagano does, and right down the street Greg Molka's wife does, both on Scannick Road.
Well, you guys are welcome to vote it
They're
down.
both produce farmers. Well, Draghi's kind of shaky, because part of it's in East Windsor and part of it's in South Windsor.
I think it's in South Windsor according to the map.
No, it's both.
I think they're incorporations.
The stand is in South Windsor,
Yeah.
but a lot of the produce is grown in
And-
East Windsor.
None of them are certified,
No.
which is a process that they need to be willing to undergo. Baggett is willing to undergo it. So, I'm going to move that we authorize $1,800 to back the senior food vouchers program. And if you guys want to vote it down, you're welcome to do that.
I'll second that.
Okay. Further discussion?
What happens if we back this, and now the state's gonna get the bright idea that, well, they don't have to fund it because we did? Is this just
There's-
another unfunded mandate they're gonna be handing us?
No, it's not.
I agree with the food, now, don't get me wrong.
It's not a mandate, first of all, and the program currently has about $560,000 worth of unbacked paper out on the street. Our $1,800 is not going to persuade them to fund or not to fund the program, but it is going to make sure that low-income seniors in East Windsor have access to locally grown fresh produce.
In the season's well on its way, so.
Well,
it's
and
not
that's,
gonna-
you're exactly right. And so
Absolutely.
it's for that purpose that I'm suggesting that the town step forward to back this, because if the legislature comes forward and adopts a budget on Labor Day, or at about Labor Day, that's great, and they could refund the program, except the growing season's over, or nearly so.
Yeah.
So it effectively makes the program null for the year.
And like you said, 1,800 is if everybody uses those coupons, and they probably won't.
Yep.
So,
I was gonna say, how many did they use last year?
All
They did.
okay, well, there you go.
of them were distributed. I don't know about the redemption rate. I don't know that I actually could check that.
Well, how do we redeem their coupons when they're drawn on a state bank? That's gonna be an interesting little operation.
So Baggy takes, I thought about this.
Yeah.
The town authorizes $1,800 for this, to subsidize this program. Baggett takes the food vouchers, which come in six check voucher books, and then he can bring them to the town hall, and it's a like-kind exchange. $1 worth of voucher gets you $1 worth of cash, up to an amount of $1,800.
Okay,
We also know specifically the check numbers that were issued to the town of East Windsor, so we wouldn't be exposing ourselves to redeeming checks that were distributed outside of town. So this specifically helps our constituents only.
further discussion?
Where's the funding coming from?
We ask the Board of Finance tomorrow.
Okay.
We should be suggesting to them.
No, they run the money, we don't suggest anything.
I'm happy to make the suggestion that it comes out of contingency if you'd rather have that incorporated into it, but, you know, I don't care one way or another what pot of money it comes out of.
I just don't want to see it abused.
Program is pretty fail-safe. You can't use it on anything other than fresh produce, and we could keep all of the same regulations in place that the program is intended for, so it can't be used for potted plants or cigarettes or anything like that. It is limited specifically to the intention that it's outlined for.
Okay, Rob? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll say aye too.
Okay, it's over.
I'm for it.
Okay.
Let's $1,800.
I'm saying, the only thing, I'm for it, but the only thing is, we're sending a bad message. We're sitting here not funding stuff, saying don't spend any money till the state has a budget, and then we're spending money.
Well, we're feeding our own, that's what we're doing.
Taking
We're
care of
feeding
the
our
people
own.
in town.
I won't spend the money for a generator, but I will spend the money to feed our,
I agree with
feed our
that
own.
one, too.
Okay, moving on to the next, which is my status report. And I'm going to pass it out. And I apologize to Dick for not having it in advance. I was finishing it up this afternoon. So here's my status report.
We're gonna go to the next meeting.
Well, and that's
Actually,
what-
that much reading, that might not be a
Yeah,
bad
no,
idea.
there's 9 pages of the freaking thing. So I would suggest that we put it on the agenda for next meeting. You guys can read it,
Okay, yep. I
and we
like
certainly
that
can
idea.
discuss it.
There's nothing that has to be done.
No,
this
in
meeting,
fact,
does it?
and I call it the State of East Windsor, July 2017. And I figure
Sounds great.
the state of East Windsor is going to not change drastically in the next 2 weeks.
We hope.
I hope. Okay, we move on to tax refunds.
I make a motion to refund the amount of $1,738.69 on Town of East Windsor tax refund dated 7/13/2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is second.
Okay.
Dick seconded?
Yeah.
Selectmen reports, and Steve Dearborn.
Move right along.
It's Jason, then.
Jason, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
No, he didn't go to anything.
Okay.
On July 7th, the Pensions Board held a second informational forum on our initial proposed changes to the town's pension document. That was the second of 2, and we'll now move on to the formal negotiation phase. So there will be a lot less to report on in open session as that commences, but it was important to us that because we were first of all updating a document just from an IRS code standpoint that hadn't been updated in a decade and a half or so. And also because we were proposing some systemic changes, we wanted to give town employees the opportunity to have a more informal and informational back and forth about what those changes entailed. On June 9th, I attended the rubber duck and cardboard boat race, which was always a fun summer event. It had been pushed back a week because of the, what did I say, June?
You said June, it's July.
I wrote July. So on July 9th, I attended the cardboard and rubber duck boat race, which is always a fun summer event. It had been delayed because of water quality, which subsequently was resolved, and I think everybody had a good time. I did miss the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on July 11th, and that's all I have. Very short this week.
Okay. Dale?
Well, I couldn't attend the duck race and the cardboard race because the power lines were sitting in my front yard.
You gotta get a lightning protector or something.
I'm telling you, they snapped off because a tree went down at the end of Amelia, so they snapped off, and I had a live wire sitting right next to my little sign for the veterans. So yeah, I wasn't going anywhere. As a matter of fact, I had a hell of a time getting back home. And the Department of Public Works, the negotiations have been postponed. I guess they're looking at August 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. I just hope they get it done before I leave on vacation, September 5th, because I'll be gone for almost 3 weeks. I know, that's a sad thing, I know.
Thanks
Okay.
for the warning, kid.
Smallest violin in the world.
Just saying.
Yeah, but a happy dance at home.
Okay.
Dick?
Hey, well, guess what? I did make the planning and zoning, but I was gonna let you give it if you made it. Wasn't too awful much. Had a request for an extension on the permit for Calamar, which was granted. Al Grant came before him with a farmland preservation deal that he's got working, and we'll leave it at that at this point. They're gonna look at the sign regulations. They keep saying this. Continued hearings for Apothecary Hall Enterprises, which is in the Sportsman Club, which is Charbonneau's. The neighbors are still upset over the dust. What can I tell you? He's doing what he can do, and they're looking into a lot of various things. They've slowed the truck traffic down in there, which has definitely made a difference on the dust. But if he gets that entrance down by the fertilizer plant open, he'll cut the traffic down by about 2 miles through the pit. That'll make the dust much less. And if these wonderful people would quit visiting his property with their ATVs and motorcycles immediately upon somebody not being there, it would probably be wonders, but then we all know that isn't gonna happen. So that's continued to the next meeting. Forefathers Sports World is in for some parking, and they're looking to construct 4 soccer fields. That's also continued. Inland wetlands, not too much going on. New business, Lawrence Farms LLC, which is Chapman's apartments that were approved for South Main Street. Permit renewal, which was granted, and Barbara presented quite a long chat on the Melrose Bridge project. It's basically set to go. Laurie's gonna take care of checking on, well, Laurie or her assistant, if we have one, is gonna make sure that the erosion control is taken care of and all the rest of the yeah. They're probably disturbing the whole, maybe 100 square feet, maybe. But anyway, that's what they wanted. That's it.
And I have nothing. So, on to public participation. Bill.
Bill Lowe, Storrow's Road. I'm interested when we're getting our new treasurer. I know we had interviews. Is there a date when we get the new treasurer? Or
Not yet.
still not?
Not yet. Might be forthcoming, it might not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Further public participation? Okay, Joe.
Joe Malafat, 4 South Road. One of the things that I'm just curious about when you talk about the oil tanks, we happen to have what they're calling valves or whatever under the tank. Is that a requirement in East Windsor, that there is one if somebody has an outside tank?
It's a state, probably federal requirement.
Okay, I wasn't.
You have to have any kind of an outside tank like that, you have to have containment that will handle 1.5 times the volume of the tank.
Okay, so that's something, but something that before, was that a thing for a long time, or? So I'm sure, I've seen other houses.
There are houses, I don't know when it came to be, because you're right, if you drive around, not only this town, but other towns, I mean, there are people that do have the outside oil tanks just sitting on a slab or something. Not a good idea.
Right. No, I fully agree, I mean.
As we were saying earlier, I don't know what recourse you have to go make that individual homeowner do something, but it's in their best interest, because if they own the lot and they own the house, if their tank lets go, they're certainly responsible.
Oh, yeah, I mean, like you had brought up, because I was trying to respond to what you were saying earlier about number 2, because I know that I have talked to her, and she called several insurance companies trying to figure, and everybody said, you don't own the land, we will not insure the land. So that's something that we don't even really have any kind of control over as far as trying to put insurance on it, something like that. And as far as, somebody had mentioned, why don't we just put plugs in these, whatever it needs. We're, like I asked the last meeting, we're paying, I don't know how many people, I'm paying land use. I'd like to see some of that money maybe come back into the circle where, as our land use states, should be happening.
So,
I mean,
from
if
the
you're
money
saying-
that you pay us, the rent, we could fix those plugs in the,
Oh, I've been paying since,
I appreciate
the town
that, too.
took it over.
Mm.
And speaking of paying it, I don't know, like I say, I don't know how many people aren't paying or anything. Is there anything being done for the people that are paying? I mean, am I paying and I'm the only one and maybe I shouldn't be paying?
No, keep paying.
Well, you're not the only one, and really you should pay your rent.
Oh, I do, like I said, I do, but I'm looking at it too also.
Yeah, no,
I'm
we
paying,
are too, yeah.
What, $600, $700 a year in this land lease?
Yeah.
And if there's 5, 10 people not paying it, what repercussions are they having in that?
Well, I'm sure that it's only a matter of time before we put a lien on their property, which means we get the money back when they sell.
Right, we're gonna have to.
Yeah.
We can't let it continue. I mean, Lenny could eat that up in 15 minutes in there, repairing the road, without even trying.
Okay, any further
Pumping's asphalt is very expensive.
participation?
Maybe 21?
All right, we'll go into executive session if I can have a motion.
Okay, motion to go into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 1206A, employment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, take a break.
After a break.
That sounds terrible.
There you go.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Getting up there.